we have really listened to very powerful conversations, engagements, sharing moments with the justers. And although the people here were talking about their own lives, they are representing very many people, so that in the story of this one life are many lives. So it's not just one person talking about their situation, but it is one person really talking to say that there are so many Kenyans in these situations. And I think, as the Kenya Human Rights representative has said, these are things that should be listened to, and appropriate policy, programmatic frameworks developed to assist us. So I think from the very beginning, and I took a lot of notes. I was also a teacher, like Dorothy. I took very many notes, and I'm really happy I came here. I kept on asking, what should I talk about? Because normally, when I go to meetings, I would like to know what I should talk about, so that one is not off point. And teachers like that. But again, I thought to myself, like I had a challenge coming here, because my wife, and we have been married for one extra year than the years, 45. But I was wondering, if we were the ones sitting here, what would be our story? And would we be evidently flowing with love? I was wondering, but I'm not saying it. You know? And we have had moments with my wife to sit, particularly in a church context, to talk about ourselves. But I was also wondering, these things we are hearing, to what extent do we take them not only home, but do we internalize them in our lives so that they can change how we do things? Because if we listen to them as stories, and even within the YouTube space, and that's it, then they are not transformational. And so the issue is always, when you listen to things that are of moment and are really important, how do they change, your life? So, some of them, like Dr. Kireki was sharing, they are very, very hard, because even to talk about them sometimes in the open is not always that easy. But I like the fact that here people talk about real things, so that there can be solutions. I think even when one has what they think is a secret, is something that is hurting them, usually it's not always the case that you are the only person who knows it. There are other people, there could be other people who also know about it. And so, the moment you begin to talk about it, you see, now you depersonalize it, and you're beginning to say, this has been hurting me. How do I release myself? How do I get people who now know what has been happening to me? How do they get now to begin to empathize with me, to understand sometimes why I behave in particular ways, to assist me? And we have seen real evidence of people sharing, and then others understanding where they're coming from and coming in to be part and parcel of helping them go forward. And sometimes we like to tell things to strangers. Like when I was coming here, I said that a challenge, I don't know how to get the Google, the Uber. So I asked somebody to do that for me. It was taking time. And then I took a mat to Karen, I stay in Gong, to Karen to take the Uber from Karen. I had actually some friends. I was supposed to meet them at 1, but I arrived here about 2. And in that matatu, I met a guy who began to tell me, after we introduced each other, about how somebody committed suicide recently, and how that triggered the fact of a friend of his during COVID had committed suicide. And they were talking on the phone from Ngong to Kasarani, telling him, don't do this. But by the time he reached Kasarani, the guy had taken poison and the guy had passed on. So I said to myself, because this is a stranger, I am a kind of a stranger, this is something that has been heavy on this guy. And he found somebody, when the matatu stops and people are coming and, you are squeezing a little, he found somebody to, maybe share. I'm not a psychiatrist or, a counselor and so on. So people like to say things about themselves, so long as they feel it's a safe space, so that then perhaps they can be understood, perhaps they can get help. And I think that's why, just as what you do, and I think Agatha was here before, and people in that space, and people who talked here, who sat here, I think it is extremely valuable. Okay. Having said that, can I, normally people say I am, a bit reserved. I don't say many things about myself. Justus, can you allow me to brag a little? Can you allow me to brag a little? Okay. So you have got permission to brag. I started teaching at the university at 23 years old as a lecturer. Some of the people I taught were older than me. Even some of the girls were asking, is he single? And of course I was single. I taught at the university for 25 years. I worked in the public sector for now 45 years, before 2023. I was Dean of the Faculty of Law. During civil society days, I was chairperson of the pro-democracy movement when we were trying to say, we want multipartyism, we want a new constitution, and we worked a lot, Kenya Human Rights Commission, many people. I was, were one of those people. Education-wise, got the first degree LLB, University of Nairobi, a master's, University of London, a master's, Harvard, a PhD, George Washington. I'm not yet done. A master's of arts in theology from African International University. I was MP, I was Assistant Minister, Office of the President, Assistant Minister, Office of the Vice President, Minister of Environment and Natural Resources, Minister of Lands, and for 17 months, I was a minister in 2 ministries. I would work in one during the day and the other one during the night. Presidential advisor on parliamentary, constitutional and youth affairs to President Kibaki. And governor of Makueni, 2013 to 2022. So I asked for permission. I don't do this. I asked for permission to brag a little. Now, let me get to the serious part. When I was in Form 6, when was that? 1972. When I was in Form 6. That was the first day I tested alcohol. Beer. Why? 18 years old. This is how you show you are a man. And, I tested it. It was not very sweet. It was not sweet. It was, I said, why do people take this thing? It was not sweet. But that's when I tasted it. With time, particularly now after, becoming a lecturer, you have money. You can go to town and you paint it red with your friends. And those were hard days, because those were the days of especially those days of mowing, when people were being detained, they were disappearing, things were happening. So we would go to the senior common room of the University of Nairobi, where we would drink our beer. And that was one of the places. There were, of course, many places where we drank the beer. And we would sign. You sign, and to whatever your bill is deducted at the end of the month. And sometimes we would drink until there wasn't actually money left from your salary. And I remember one of my friends, who is now deceased, realizing that the school fees to be paid and there is no money in the salary. So he took the book, because everybody had their own book. He thought if he took the book, then there would be no deduction. But they still deducted the whole salary. We stayed in many places at the university, but one of the places was near Hotel Milimani. So Hotel Milimani was our sitting room, where, after you work, you go there and you continue with the drink. And I was very clever, so I thought, because I would arrange my teaching, Monday, Tuesday. I do most of my teaching. So my weekend starts on Tuesday evening. So from Tuesday evening, we can drink all the beer we want. We can, we drink until Sunday now, Saturday, Sunday, I have now to begin preparing for Monday and Tuesday. Fortunately, when I got into the classroom, it was like a shrine. I really felt, very comfortable there. And I was lucky I didn't get disciplinary action, And of course, some of my friends got disciplinary action. Some of my very close friends passed on. Okot Papitek, later John Ruganda, and many of my friends were not as lucky as I am, because I'm here talking to you, they aren't. And I remember when we went to bury Okot Papitek, Song of Lawino. How many of you have read Song of Lawino? Song of Okol? There was a teacher's bottle, which was undrunk. He had drunk a little of it. There was 3/4. So we said, part of escorting him, we have to finish the bottle, so that we escort him properly. And after that, there was waragi. In Gulu. We continued. Aluta continuum. So, of course, when you do this kind of stuff, that is now from 79. When you do this kind of stuff, it impacts on your family. There are all those quarrels. You get money, you are misusing the money. You are not present, And people talk to you, tell you, why are you wasting yourself? Why are you doing all this crazy stuff? Your parents, your everybody. In actual fact, I remember Willie Mutunga taking me to Islop building. And so we were standing together and he was saying, why are you doing this? And I said, I'm okay. After all, I'm doing my teaching. So who is complaining? So now I go abroad to study. And of course, some of it was not really going to study. Some of it was like a way of exiting from the country, as like going to exile. So I go. But even there, I haven't thought that things are not good. And even I remember before going abroad, there was one time when we bought our first car, Lada. with my spouse. And, you know, I went on, I think it was on a Saturday, I went to have a drink, and we drank from 10. And, you know, about 6, you know, I thought now I should go home. And it was past Nairobi Hospital somewhere there. So I say now I'm thinking how I'm going home, because we used to say in Menlik Road. So I said, now after I come from here and I get the main road, I am going to Posta a GPO. And then the challenge is the roundabout. And now when I go and I do the roundabout, you know, then I'm just going straight. The other challenge is how I'll get, you know, the Menlik, to get now to Menlik and get home. So by the time I reached the roundabout, I was asleep. So I was woken up by a big bang. Hey, now what's happening? So I thought, now how come I'm getting a puncture and it's during the night? Now who is going to help me? So people are coming out. Is he injured? What? I realized it's not a puncture. And you know, those days, if you're caught, the system now would have a good reason to really fix you. So I told them, I think I'm hurt. Please, ambulance. And I said, I'm going to Kenyatta Hospital, where Daktari sometimes, you know, goes to teach his students. When I got into the ambulance, I told them, no, take me to Nairobi Hospital. So when the police came to Kenyatta, they didn't find me. and we were told some of these stories, tell them and laugh, you know, and laugh. And this is the second time I'm telling this story, because I once I told this story, a bit of it in church. Now, so when I went to, of course, Nairobi Hospital, I slept. Whatever they did, I slept. And the following day, the nurse told me, you must be crazy. When you were brought here, you were so drunk that even us coming to attend you, we got drunk. And the family is looking for me. They look for me everywhere. Until now, they are looking for me at the mortuary. And then, you know, somehow I had presence of mind. I told them, you know, I'm okay. They come to hospital, my spouse. And you see, that's just one episode of some of what, you know, would happen. Now, after I go abroad, you know, and then before I go abroad, I had been told, you know, by family, by friends, you know, you really need to change tact. You are lucky, you have got this Fulbright scholarship, you have to change tact. And, you know, I said, you guys, I'm doing fine, let me alone. But when I went abroad and, you know, I saw that this study is serious. And if I want to succeed, then I have to really, you know, change. And I told my, you know, my spouse, my relatives, I'm going to make one decision, and I want to make it alone. And the decision is, I continue to drink and nobody should bother me. That's my life. Or I change tact and now I decide there is something that I want to do with my life. And fortunately, I made the personal decision that I could do better with my life. And that was the turning point. And I realized, with all these things, you have to make that personal decision. Even if people give you tons of information, or they give you tons of advice, or they tell you are, until whatever it is, whether it's an addiction, that addiction of alcohol, of pornography, of any addiction, or accepting that you have a mental illness and you have to subject yourself to treatment, you know, or you are being abused and you stop making excuses. You have to confront it and say, I will not accept to be abused. Unless you don't make that personal decision, then you can't be helped. Unfortunately, it has to come down to your own personal thing. And I had seen friends dying, and even that didn't bother me. I said, it's their time. God has wanted that to happen. And that couldn't convince me until I confronted myself and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was from 83, from 79 to 83. 79 to 83 is how many years? 79 to 83. Yes, 4 years. So I said, I'm done. This is not going to help me. This is not going to help me. So I thought, although I was a spare wheel, I should share, this story, because I do work with young people, and we know for a fact that drugs are a major issue. And sometimes we are told economic conditions, disempowerment, and so on. And that is still not the solution. The solution is not lulling yourself by, these drinks and so on and so forth. And yet, you have to make the decision to get out of that, that condition. If my wife was here, she would also supply more information about our struggles, and she doesn't mind me telling the story. I don't mind it if it will be of assistance to others. And the reason I tried to brag is to say, even with all that experience, all is not lost if you come back to the proper path. And you can reconstruct yourself, you can enable yourself, you can repair people you have hurt, because you normally will have hurt many people, and you have to apologize, you have to do things and do better as such, and have conversations with the children, with your spouse, with relatives, and so on. So when sometimes you see people who are quote successful, try to ask them, yes, there is this success, but what else is there? And what difficulties do you have? Like the story of the Kageas of, yes, this is a very beautiful marriage, in my own estimation, sitting here. And I watch people. I learn people not from what they say, but I watch them. And that tells me a lot of things, I think. So, but then they are saying there is that other part where they had struggles, and yet they were able to overcome those struggles. So all these struggles can be overcome if only we now face them. Whether you're a young person, you're a middle-aged person, you're an old person, even those problems of a dysfunction, I will not provide the other word to it. I would imagine there are ways in which I'm going to be 70 next year, and maybe those are some of the things, which can happen when you become 70 years and so on and so forth. So thank you very much. I hope I was a good, dependable spare wheel.